The night was silent on the edge of the alien colony. The air was cold, and the sky burned with 3 pale moons. Inside a small workshop of steel and broken parts, a human engineer named Daniel worked alone. His hands were rough from years of building machines, but his heart was gentle. He had been living here for months, fixing simple tools for the alien people, but never truly belonging. On this night, he was not repairing farm machines or broken drones. He was building something dangerous, something forbidden. On the workbench lay a strange device, thin and shining. It looked like a visor, a curved band with hidden wires glowing faint blue. Daniel whispered to himself, "If this works, she will see again." Her name was Lyra. She was young, her skin pale silver, her eyes clouded with blindness. Since birth, she had lived in shadows, guided only by touch and sound. The people of her kind pitied her but never helped. They believed blindness was a curse, a weakness to be hidden. But Daniel had seen her strength, her quiet courage. She was the only one who smiled at him when others turned away, so he promised himself he would give her the gift of sight. The door opened softly, and Lyra stepped inside. Her footsteps were careful, but she knew Daniel's workshop well. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice soft like wind. "You called me here." Daniel smiled and held up the visor. "Yes, Lyra. This is for you." She touched the device with shaking hands. Her fingers traced the smooth metal, the glowing edge. Her voice trembled. "For me? But why? Why risk this?" Daniel looked at her and spoke slowly. "Because you deserve to see the stars, Lyra. Not only hear about them." She hesitated, afraid, but finally nodded. Daniel gently placed the visor over her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a light shimmered inside the band and the air seemed to vibrate. Lyra gasped. Her eyes, once pale and clouded, began to glow faint silver. She cried out, "Daniel, I can see you." Her tears fell, but her smile grew wide. She turned her head, looking around the workshop, the broken tools, the glowing screens, the tiny sparks of fire from the forge. She laughed like a child seeing the world for the first time. Then she stepped outside into the night. Her head lifted and her mouth opened in awe. "The moons," she whispered. "The stars. So many stars." But then she froze, her smile fading. Her voice dropped into fear. "Daniel, I see something else." Her glowing eyes reflected strange symbols in the sky, lines of light connecting the stars. Her body shook as if the visor showed her a hidden truth. "What is it?" Daniel asked, stepping close. "I don't know," she whispered. "But it feels wrong, like danger." Suddenly the ground trembled. A deep echo rolled through the night. Daniel frowned and pulled her back inside. He shut the door and killed the lights. The sound grew louder, heavy footsteps, mechanical and sharp. Lyra clutched his arm, her body shaking. "What is that?" she whispered. Daniel's face turned pale. "Soldiers," he said, his voice low. "Elite soldiers." Through a crack in the wall, Daniel saw them. 4 massive figures in black armor, their eyes burning with red lights. They carried weapons. Longer than Daniel's arm, their boots crashed against the stone as they scanned the colony. One of them raised a device and spoke in a deep metallic voice. "The human engineer is here. We will find him." Daniel's blood ran cold. He had feared this moment. Helping Lyra was not only forbidden, it was a crime against the alien law. Humans were not allowed to alter alien biology or touch their sacred weaknesses, but he had done it, and now they had come for him. Lyra grabbed his hand, her eyes glowing, brighter through the visor. "They must not take you," she whispered. "They must not take this gift." Daniel knew she was right. If the soldiers found her with the visor, they would destroy it and perhaps destroy her too. He held her hand tighter, his mind racing. "I will protect you," he whispered, though his heart pounded with fear. The footsteps stopped right outside, the workshop. The walls shook as an armored fist slammed against the steel door. Human, a voice roared from outside. Open the door now. Daniel looked at Lyra, her glowing eyes wide with terror. The visor shimmered, pulsing like it was alive. Daniel whispered, "Stay quiet no matter what happens." The door shook again, louder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling, the metal bent under the force. Lyra pressed close to Daniel. The night was filled with silence, broken only by the pounding of soldiers' fists. Daniel knew the warning was clear. His gift had changed everything, and now, war was at his door. The night air was heavy with silence. Every step of the armored soldiers echoed through the colony streets like thunder. People peered from their homes but quickly shut their doors. No one wished to be seen when the elite patrol arrived. They were not soldiers of protection. They were hunters. Hunters who never left without their prey. Inside the workshop, Daniel's heart raced. The pounding on the door shook the small building. "Human, open now." The deep, metallic voice repeated. Dust rained from the ceiling. Tools rattled on the walls. Lyra clung to Daniel's sleeve, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The visor on her head hummed softly, as if alive. Daniel pressed, a finger to his lips, signaling silence. She nodded, but her breathing was sharp, fast, almost breaking the quiet. Another crash hit the door, bending the steel inward. The soldiers were not asking anymore. They were coming in. Daniel's mind raced for escape. He glanced toward the back of the workshop where a narrow hatch lay hidden under a pile of scrap. It was an old maintenance tunnel, unused for years, but it might be their only way out. "Move," he whispered to Lyra, pulling her toward the hatch. Her hands trembled, but she obeyed. Together they pushed the scrap aside, metal clanging against the floor. Daniel lifted the hatch, revealing a dark passage, breathing cold air. "Go first," he urged. Lyra hesitated. "And you? I'll follow, hurry," he said. Lyra lowered herself into the darkness, the visor's glow lighting faint symbols carved on the stone. Daniel was about to follow when the door behind them screeched open. A burst of cold night air swept in. Shadows of tall armored figures stretched across the floor. Red scanners sliced through the smoke and dust. "Inside," one soldier commanded, their heavy steps entering the workshop. Daniel froze, half hidden by the hatch. His eyes darted back and forth, calculating. The soldiers moved like machines, precise, methodical. One scanned the workbench, another swept the walls with a beam of red light. "Energy spike detected," the soldier growled. The visor, Daniel, realized even through the tunnel its glow was like a beacon calling to them. Lyra whispered from below, "Daniel, come quickly." But if he climbed down now, the sound would give them away. He steadied his breath. One soldier turned, scanning toward the hatch. The visor hummed louder, almost in warning. Daniel's eyes widened. He had to act. He grabbed a piece of scrap, metal, and hurled it across the room. It clattered against the far wall. The soldiers instantly shifted, their red eyes snapping toward the sound. One barked an order. "Movement over there." Two of them stormed toward the noise, weapons raised. Daniel used the chance. He slipped into the hatch, closing it just as a red beam swept across the floor. Darkness swallowed him. Only Lyra's visor lit the path ahead. The tunnel smelled of damp earth and rust. Water dripped from above, echoing through the narrow space. Lyra whispered, "I see markings." Her fingers brushed the stone walls. Strange glowing lines appeared as the visor reacted, symbols older than the colony itself. Daniel squinted. "What do they mean?" "I don't know," she whispered, "but they feel alive, like they want to guide us." Behind them, the soldiers roared in anger. One shouted, "They are below." The heavy stomps above shook dust from the ceiling. Then came the sound of metal grinding, tools cutting through the hatch. "They are coming," Daniel muttered. "Faster," Lyra urged, pulling him deeper into the tunnels. The passage twisted like a maze, sometimes narrow, sometimes opening into forgotten chambers. The visor painted faint paths ahead, guiding Lyra as if she had walked here her whole life. Daniel followed, his chest tight, every breath heavy. He could hear the soldiers dropping into the tunnels behind them, their metallic boots scraped against stone. The hunt had begun. Lyra stopped suddenly, holding her head. "What is it?" Daniel asked. Her glowing eyes darted. "I see. More than walls, I see. A door hidden behind the rock." She pressed her hand against the stone and the visor flared bright. The wall shifted, revealing a secret opening. Daniel stared in shock. "How?" "No time." She cut him off, pulling him through. The hidden door sealed shut behind them, plunging the soldiers into confusion. Inside the chamber, silence returned. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathless. Lyra's visor dimmed, her eyes filled with strange light. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They want the visor," Daniel said bitterly. "No." Lyra shook her head slowly. "They want what the visor can reveal." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra touched the glowing lines on the chamber wall. Symbols lit up like fire spreading across stone. She whispered in awe. "This visor is not just a gift. It is a key." Daniel felt a chill run through him. If the soldiers knew this, they would destroy everything to possess it. And now, they were trapped in a game far larger than he imagined. The pounding echoes of armored boots drew closer. Daniel clenched his fists, ready to fight if needed. Lyra's voice trembled, but her eyes burned with new strength. "They are coming, Daniel," she whispered. "And this time they will not ask." The hidden chamber was cold and silent. Shadows moved across the walls where the visor's faint glow touched the stone. Daniel pressed his ear against the wall, listening. The sound of the soldiers' boots echoed faintly, distant but steady. "They are searching the tunnels," he whispered. Lyra's glowing eyes swept across the symbols on the walls. Her voice was soft but urgent. "The visor is showing me a path. A way forward." The walls shimmered with faint patterns only she could see. Lines of light that connected and shifted like a living map. She pointed toward a narrow crack in the stone. "To them it is only rock, but to me, it is a door," she said. Daniel stared, unsure. "How can you know?" "Because the visor tells me," Lyra answered, her voice trembling. "It speaks in light." Daniel took a deep breath and pushed against the crack. The stone shifted slowly, revealing a passage dark as night. Cold air rushed through, carrying the smell of damp earth. Lyra stepped in first, her visor glowing like a lantern in the darkness. Daniel followed close, sealing the stone door behind them. The noise of the soldiers vanished, swallowed by heavy silence. The tunnel twisted like a serpent. Water dripped from cracks above, each drop echoing like a warning. Their footsteps were soft, yet every sound felt too loud. Daniel's nerves burned, every beat of his heart louder than he wished. He whispered, "Why are they so desperate for this visor?" Lyra touched the glowing band on her head. "I think this visor does not only help me see, Daniel, it awakens something hidden." The further they walked, the brighter the symbols became. They were not random marks, but shapes of stars, moons, and strange creatures. It was a story carved in stone, forgotten by time. Lyra stopped and touched one of the carvings. Her visor flared bright, and for a moment her body stiffened. She gasped, her voice filled with awe. I see memory." Daniel grabbed her shoulders. "Lyra, what do you see?" Her glowing eyes filled with strange visions. "I see my people long ago. They were not slaves of soldiers. They were free. They walked beside humans once, side by side, but then something happened, a betrayal, a war. The visor shows me fragments, but not the whole truth." Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. So this simple device he built was not only restoring sight, it was unlocking ancient knowledge buried deep within her race. Knowledge the soldiers did not want revealed. He clenched his fists. "That's why they're hunting us. Not because of me, not because of you, but because the visor is waking up their past." The ground trembled suddenly. Daniel looked back. Red light glowed faintly in the far distance. The soldiers had found another way, into the tunnels. Their scanners cut through the dark, sharp, and merciless. "They're close," Daniel whispered, pulling Lyra's hand. "We have to move." They ran, their steps quick but careful. The tunnel split into many paths. Some led into darkness, Some collapsed into stone. Daniel hesitated, unsure which way to go. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the visor guide her. "This way," she whispered, leading him into a narrow side path. The soldiers' voices echoed behind them, metallic and cruel. "Do not lose them. The human has the prototype. The girl has the key." Their words made Daniel's blood boil. They did not see Lyra as a person, only as a tool. But she was more than that. She was brave. She was strong, and Daniel swore he would protect her. The path grew tighter. The ceiling dropping lower, Daniel had to crawl, his hand scraping against rough stone. Lyra moved ahead, her visor casting strange lights across the walls. Suddenly she stopped. "Daniel, wait." He froze. "What is it?" "There are traps. Here," she whispered, pointing at faint glowing lines on the ground. The visor revealed hidden mechanisms, ancient defenses buried in the tunnels. Daniel's eyes widened. "If we had stepped on that," Lyra nodded, "we would not be alive." She carefully guided him around the traps, the visor lighting every hidden danger. Without it, they would have walked straight into death. Daniel felt both gratitude and fear. This visor was powerful, too powerful, and in the wrong hands it could destroy entire worlds. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast cavern, a river of black water cut through the middle. Stalactites hung like teeth from the ceiling, dripping endlessly. Lyra looked around, her visor shining brighter than ever. "This place," she whispered. "It feels like it has been waiting for us." Daniel scanned the cavern nervously. "Waiting or warning?" he muttered. The soldiers' voices grew louder behind them. Red beams swept into the cavern, searching. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand. "Across the river," he said. They jumped across slippery stones, water splashing, echoing through the chamber. A beam of red light cut past Daniel's head. A soldier's voice roared, "There! Do not let them escape!" Blaster fire struck the rocks, sparks exploding around them. Daniel and Lyra dove behind a jagged stone wall, hearts pounding. The soldiers advanced, their armored steps shaking the cavern. Lyra gripped Daniel's arm, her voice low but steady. "Daniel, the visor is telling me something." He looked at her, desperate. "What?" Her glowing eyes locked on his. "It says there is no escape in shadows," she whispered. "There is only escape through the light." The visor pulsed with energy, brighter than ever. The cavern lit up like a star awakening. The soldiers stopped, blinded for a moment. Daniel shielded his eyes, his heart thundering. Whatever the visor had awakened, it was only the beginning. The cavern still glowed faintly from the visor's light. The soldiers had been blinded for a moment, but Daniel knew they would not stop. He and Lyra slipped through a narrow crack at the far side, hearts pounding. The sound of water and echoes swallowed their steps as they vanished into deeper tunnels. Hours seemed to pass in silence. The air grew warmer, filled with the smell of smoke and old metal. Finally, the tunnels opened into a forgotten warehouse buried beneath the colony. Rusty crates lay stacked like sleeping giants, and broken machines stood frozen in dust. Daniel collapsed against a wall, his chest heaving. Lyra lowered herself beside him, her glowing visor dimming slowly. "We cannot keep running," Daniel whispered. "They will hunt us until we are caught." Lyra's voice was soft but certain. "The visor shows me more, Daniel. It shows me that not everyone is loyal to the soldiers. There are others who live in fear, outcasts, rebels. Maybe they will help us." Daniel looked at her, doubtful. "Or maybe they will sell us to save themselves." But he had little choice. He was tired, his body bruised, and Lyra was trembling from exhaustion. If they did not find food, water, and rest soon, they would not survive. A noise stirred from the far corner of the warehouse. A shadow moved, slow and careful. Daniel leapt to his feet, holding a broken pipe like a weapon. "Who's there?" he demanded. The shadow stepped into the dim light, revealing an old alien with worn armor and a scarred face. His eyes were pale and tired, but his voice was steady. "Peace, human. I mean no harm." Lyra tilted her head, recognition flickering in her voice. "Chiron," she whispered. The old alien nodded. "Child, I know you. Your family once helped me when I had nothing." Daniel lowered the pipe slightly but did not relax. "Why are you here?" he asked. Charon raised his hands, showing they were empty. "I hide from the soldiers as you do. I know their cruelty. I know their hunger for power." Daniel studied him with suspicion. The timing felt too perfect. But Lyra's visor glowed, faintly reflecting Chiron's face. "He speaks truth," she said quietly. Chiron smiled bitterly. "This war is not new, human. Long ago, soldiers like them destroyed voices of freedom. They will do it again unless someone resists." Chiron led them deeper into the warehouse where a hidden chamber was lit by faint lanterns. A few rebels sat there, weak and ragged, their eyes filled with fear. They watched Daniel and Lyra with suspicion. But no one spoke against Chiron. "These are the broken ones," he said, "those who have lost everything." Daniel frowned. "And you think they will help us fight?" Chiron shook his head. "No, they will not fight, but they can hide you, for now." For the first time since the soldiers appeared, Daniel felt a spark of hope. He lowered his guard and sat among the rebels. Lyra smiled faintly, her glowing eyes reflecting a peace she had not felt in days. Daniel whispered, "We might survive this." But the visor flickered, as if it was warning her. Her smile faded, and her body stiffened. "Daniel," she whispered. "Something feels wrong." Daniel turned sharply, scanning the room. The rebels stared at him with unreadable eyes. Chiron stepped closer, his voice calm. "Rest, human. You need strength." But Daniel noticed a strange device on Chiron's wrist. It pulsed with faint red light, the same glow as the soldiers' scanners. His heart dropped. "It's a signal," he hissed. "He's calling them?" Lyra's eyes widened. Her visor flared bright, exposing the faint outline of hidden transmitters in the walls. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing Chiron by the collar. "You betrayed us," he growled. Chiron's face twisted with guilt. "I had no choice, human. They promised to leave us alive if I gave you up." The rebels lowered their heads, ashamed but silent. They had agreed to the betrayal. Lyra's voice cracked with pain. "You sold us to murderers. You sold me to chains." Chiron looked at her with sorrow. "Child, forgive me. I am old and tired of running. You cannot win against them." Before Daniel could answer, the sound of heavy boots thundered above. The soldiers were already here. Red light pierced through the cracks in the ceiling. Metallic voices roared, "Seal the exits. They are inside." Daniel pushed Chiron aside and grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run!" he shouted. The rebels scattered in panic. Some cried out, others dropped to the ground in fear. Daniel and Lyra raced toward the far end of the warehouse. But before they could reach the door, soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Blaster fire cracked through the air, sparks showering across the room. Daniel pushed Lyra behind a crate and swung his pipe at the nearest soldier. The weapon shattered against the armor. Useless, the soldier struck him down with one brutal hit. Lyra screamed, but another soldier grabbed her arms. She fought, the visor glowing brighter, sparks flying from its surface. But the soldiers tightened their grip, dragging her away. Daniel, half-conscious, tried to crawl toward her. His vision blurred, his body weak. Lyra's glowing eyes locked onto him, her voice trembled. "Daniel, don't let them take it." The soldiers pulled them apart. Daniel's fists clawed at the ground, his heart breaking. Lyra vanished into the darkness of armored shadows. The visor's last glow flickered like a fading star. And then it was gone. Daniel's body was bound in chains. The soldiers stood above him, their red eyes burning with cold victory. One spoke in a metallic growl. "The human is captured. The key is secured." Daniel closed his eyes. He had failed to protect her. But in his heart, a fire still burned. This was not the end. Not for him, and not for Lyra. Chains cut into Daniel's wrists as the soldiers dragged him through the underground corridors. The air smelled of rust and burned metal. Every step echoed like a hammer in his skull. His body ached from the beating, but his mind burned with only one thought. Lyra, he had seen her taken, her glowing visor still flaring with resistance, and now he was alone, bound and broken. The soldiers shoved him into a dark chamber. Steel walls surrounded him, smooth and cold. A single light flickered, Above, casting long shadows across the floor, Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. The door slammed shut behind him with the sound of finality. He was trapped but not defeated. Moments later, the door opened again. A tall figure stepped in, cloaked in dark armor heavier than the others. His helmet was shaped like a beast with glowing red slits for eyes. This was the commander. He moved with slow power, each step heavy. Human. The commander's voice growled like metal grinding. You have built something you should not have. Daniel forced himself to stand. His voice cracked but steady. I only wanted to help her. She was blind and I gave her sight. That is no crime. The commander tilted his head, a cruel laugh echoing inside the helmet. Blindness is weakness. Weakness must remain weakness. Your gift is rebellion. Daniel clenched his fists. You fear her, don't you? You fear what she can see with the visor. The commander's silence was answer enough. Then he stepped closer, his shadow swallowing Daniel. Tell me how you built it, human. Tell me the secret of merging your crude machines with our sacred flesh. Daniel shook his head. I will tell you nothing. The commander's gauntlet shot forward, striking Daniel across the face. Blood filled his mouth, but he stayed silent. Your kind is stubborn, the commander muttered. Do you think loyalty will save you? The girl is already in our hands. Soon she will serve us, not you. Daniel's heart froze. No, he whispered. But the commander leaned closer, voice sharp like a blade. She wears the visor still, and it shows her things. If she does not give us the truth, we will take it from her mind. Daniel's rage flared. You can chain her body, but you cannot chain her spirit. The commander struck him again, harder this time. Daniel collapsed to the floor. Pain spread through his ribs, but his will held firm. The commander growled. You will break, human. All things break, but perhaps not today. We have time. He turned and left, the door slamming shut. Daniel lay in the dark, breathing hard. Every bone in his body begged him to surrender. But he remembered Lyra's voice, trembling yet strong. Don't let them take it, she had said. He whispered to the empty cell. I won't, Lyra, I swear it. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time lost meaning in the silence. The only sound was the echo of guards outside. Daniel's mind drifted between pain and memory. He saw Lyra's first smile when the visor lit her eyes. He saw her wonder at the stars. And he saw her terror when the soldiers came, each memory cut deeper than the chains. One night, the silence broke. A faint voice whispered through the vent. Above Daniel, it said softly. He lifted his head, eyes wide. Lyra? He whispered back. Her voice was weak but alive. Yes, it's me. They keep me in another cell, but the visor. It speaks to me even now. Hope surged in Daniel's chest. Are you safe? He asked quickly. For now, she whispered, but they try to take the visor. It resists them, it burns them when they touch it. I think it knows they are not worthy. Daniel smiled through his pain. That's because it belongs to you. Lyra, not them. Her voice trembled. Daniel, the visor shows me more every day. It shows me that my people were once free. They had strength. They had hope. Humans and my kind once stood together. But the soldiers erased it. They buried the truth in the shadows. Daniel's heart pounded. This is why they fear you, because if you reveal the truth, their power will fall, she whispered. They want me to betray it, to give them the memories. But I won't. Not as long as I breathe. Daniel closed his eyes, his chest tight with pride and fear. You are stronger than me, Lyra, he whispered. No, she replied softly. I am stronger because of you. Footsteps approached her side of the corridor. Her voice hurried. They are coming, Daniel. Hold on. Whatever happens, hold on. The visor tells me this is not the end. Her words faded as the guards dragged her away. Daniel pressed his forehead against the cold wall, his heart burning with both sorrow and fire. He whispered into the silence. They think they can break me. They think they can use you, but they don't understand. Humans don't bow. And you, Lyra, you were never meant to. In the darkness of his cell, Daniel smiled through blood and pain. For the first time, the chains did not feel like defeat. They felt like a promise that the truth would not die here. The night above the colony burned with the glow of soldier patrol ships. Their red lights swept across the ruins like the eyes of predators. But in the shadows beneath, hidden from their gaze, something else was stirring. Lyra sat in a dark cavern, her hands bound but her eyes glowing through the visor. The soldiers thought they had caged her, but they had only placed her closer to the truth. Each night the visor whispered to her, showing fragments of memory, ancient halls, forgotten songs, warriors who once stood proud. Her people had not always been slaves of fear. They had been free, and their voices once filled the stars. She was not alone in the cavern. Around her sat others, broken aliens, scarred and cast out. They were the rejects of the Empire, thrown away when no longer useful. Some had lost limbs. Some had lost hope, they whispered among themselves, calling Lyra a cursed child with cursed eyes. But when the visor flared bright, they all grew silent. Its light touched their faces and reminded them of something long forgotten. Lyra lifted her head, her voice steady despite the chains. You have lived in shadows for too long. You think you are weak, but I see strength in you. The outcasts shook their heads, muttering in disbelief. No one can fight the soldiers, one said bitterly. They are machines, not men. Lyra's eyes burned brighter. They are not machines. They are afraid of what we can remember, afraid of what we can become. The visor showed her their past. Outcasts who had once been leaders, farmers who had once been warriors, mothers who had once carried hope. They want you to forget, she said, but I see your truth. Meanwhile, far away in his cell, Daniel planned his escape. He studied the guard's routine, counting every step. His body was weak, but his mind sharp. Every detail mattered. When they delivered food, when they changed shifts. Pain burned in his ribs, but he whispered to himself, Hold on, Lyra, I'm coming. One night as silence filled the prison, Daniel made his move. The guard outside had dozed off, his weapon resting against the wall. Daniel pressed his chains against the corner stone, again and again until the metal scraped and snapped. His wrists bled, but the chains broke. Freedom stung like fire in his skin. He slipped out of the cell, silent as shadow. Every step was danger. But his will was iron. He found a fallen guard's weapon and held it tight, not for himself, but for her. Lyra's face burned in his mind, her voice echoing, You are stronger because of me. Now he would prove she was right. Back in the cavern, Lyra's visor pulsed. She felt it, a shift in the air, a spark of hope. She smiled faintly, whispering, Daniel is free. The outcast looked at her in confusion. How can you know? One asked. Lyra lifted her chin. Because the visor shows me the path of those who still fight. The soldiers returned, dragging their boots across the stone. They mocked the outcasts, shoving them aside like dirt. One grabbed Lyra's chains, pulling her roughly. Come, cursed girl, the commander wants your mind broken tonight. But the visor flared, burning his armored hand. He howled in pain, stumbling back. The other soldiers raised their weapons, ready to strike. The outcasts trembled, torn between fear and anger. Lyra's voice rang through the cavern. They will take me, and then they will take you. Unless you rise now. Her eyes glowed like stars. Her voice cut through their despair like fire through smoke. You call yourselves broken, but I call you survivors. If we fight together, we are not broken. We are strong. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then one outcast stood, an old alien with a missing arm. He lifted a rusted blade and growled, I am tired of crawling. Another stood, then another, until the cavern filled with voices. Weak voices, but voices of defiance. The soldiers shouted orders, firing into the crowd. But the outcasts rushed forward. Their anger was wild, their courage desperate. The cavern erupted in chaos. Lyra's chains shattered under the visor's flare. She stood free, her eyes blazing. Through the light, she cried. Not the shadows, through the light. At that same moment, Daniel fought his way through the prison halls. Guards fell one by one, not by strength, but by his cunning. He used traps, stolen weapons, and his human mind. Every step brought him closer. He heard the echoes of battle far below and knew where he must go. When he reached the cavern, he saw it. Outcasts fighting soldiers, fire and smoke filling the air. And in the center stood Lyra, glowing like a beacon of defiance. Daniel's chest filled with pride. She was no longer the blind girl he had once guided. She was the leader of the forgotten, the light of the broken. Their eyes met across the chaos. Her voice rose above the screams and fire. "You came," she whispered. Daniel raised his weapon, his voice strong despite his pain. "I told you, Lyra, I will never let them take you." The soldiers regrouped, their commander roaring with fury, but the outcasts no longer cowered. They stood tall, blades raised, eyes burning with hope. The rise of the outcast had begun, and in that moment Daniel and Lyra knew. The war was no longer just survival, it was the beginning of freedom. The cavern shook with fire and screams. Outcasts clashed with soldiers in a storm of sparks and steel. Smoke rolled across the ground like a living shadow, but in the heart of the chaos stood Daniel and Lyra, one human, one alien, bound by a promise. The commander stepped forward, towering above all. His black armor burned with red lights, his eyes glowing like molten fire. Around him stood his 3 remaining elite soldiers. Together they formed a wall of power, a storm of destruction. He raised his weapon and pointed at Daniel. "You are nothing human, yet you dare defy us." Daniel tightened his grip on the stolen blaster, his body weak but his will unbroken. "I am human," he said firmly, "and humans don't bow." Lyra stood at his side, her visor glowing like a star. Her chains were gone, her fear burned away. "We will end this tonight," she whispered. The commander roared, charging forward with crushing force. His soldiers flanked him, their weapons blazing. The cavern filled with light and thunder. Daniel dove behind cover, firing blasts. With precision, he knew he could not match their strength, but he could outthink them. That was the human way. Lyra lifted her hands as the visor pulsed. Symbols from the cavern walls lit up like rivers of fire. Energy surged through her body. She cried out, and a wave of light blinded the nearest soldier. The outcast roared with courage, striking while the soldier staggered. He fell, crushed beneath blades and fury. The commander bellowed with rage. "You think light will save you? We are eternal." He swung his blade at Daniel. Daniel rolled aside, sparks exploding as steel cut stone. Pain shot through his ribs, but he rose again. "I don't need eternity," he spat. "I just need to protect her." The second soldier advanced on Lyra, but the visor flared, revealing his movements before he struck. She sidestepped, her glowing eyes guiding her. With the strength of desperation, she struck his leg with a fallen spear. He stumbled, and the outcasts swarmed him. Their rage tore him down. Now only 2 remained, the commander and 1 soldier. The cavern floor cracked under their fury. Daniel's breath came ragged, but his eyes stayed sharp. "Lyra!" he shouted. "Use the visor, use all of it." She hesitated, fear flickering in her glowing gaze. "What if it consumes me?" she whispered. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Then I will bring you back, I believe in you." Her fear melted into fire. The visor pulsed brighter than ever. It linked with the ancient symbols on the walls, the whole cavern lit with sacred energy. The last soldier froze, blinded. The outcasts struck, ending him in fire and fury. The commander alone remained. He roared like a beast, his blade dripping with sparks. He charged Daniel. Their weapons clashed, human steel against alien power. Daniel was thrown back, his blaster skidding across the floor. The commander raised his blade for the final strike, but Lyra stepped between. Them, visor blazing. "You will not touch him," she declared. The commander laughed. "You are nothing but a child with a toy." Her eyes glowed brighter than the stars above. "No," she said firmly. "I am the memory you tried to erase. I am the truth you buried." The visor unleashed its full power. A storm of light surged outward. The cavern walls erupted with ancient energy. The commander staggered, his armor cracking under the force. He screamed, blinded and broken. Daniel seized the moment. With one final strike, he drove the stolen blade into the commander's chest. The giant fell, Crashing like thunder to the ground, silence followed, broken only by the ragged breaths of survivors. The outcasts stared in shock. The soldiers who had ruled their lives for years lay defeated. And it was not by armies or empires. It was by one human and one alien girl. Lyra removed the visor, her eyes still glowing faintly. She looked at Daniel, tears streaming down her face. "I can see now, Daniel," she whispered. "Not just with these eyes. I can see hope, because you believed in me." Daniel smiled, though blood dripped from his lip. "And because you believed in yourself." The outcasts gathered around them. Voices rose in awe. "They fought for us," one whispered. "A human and the cursed girl," said another. "No," an old voice corrected. "Not cursed, chosen." The visor dimmed. Resting in Lyra's hands, it had been more than a gift, more than a tool. It had been a key to memory, to freedom, and now it belonged not to soldiers but to the people. Daniel stood weak but unbroken, the human who had risked everything for kindness, the alien girl who had risen from shadows to light. Together they had done the impossible. They had shown that courage was stronger than fear, that truth was brighter than lies, that even against empires, humans don't bow.